You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Top daytime talk show folds to Trump admin intimidation and changes programming report. Based on an article by Alexander Willis, Brendan Carr doesn't need to ban speech when he can intimidate it. The real actor, the reporting on The View, is not mainly about a daytime talk show getting more cautious. It is about state power doing what it often does best when it wants to avoid the optics of censorship that makes a threat, and private institutions do the shrinking for it. According to Semafor's reporting, ABC's show changed its booking behavior after the Trump FCC, led by Brendan Carr, opened an inquiry over equal time rules. That is the center of the story, not programming adjustments, not editorial caution. A regulator with leverage over broadcasters signaled that political content could bring consequences, and the network responded accordingly. Coercion without the ban. Carr did not need to issue a formal gag order. He did not need a courtroom victory. He only needed to create enough risk that ABC would start policing itself. That is the cleanest form of modern political suppression. The government does not have to prove a violation before behavior changes. The inquiry itself becomes the weapon. The source text says the show has not featured a single political candidate running in a competitive midterm race since the February announcement. That is not a mystery of taste or scheduling. It is the predictable result of pressure applied by a regulator who knows broadcasters are vulnerable. The misdirection, the weakest frame here, is the one that treats this as a neutral compliance problem. It is not. It is a power problem. The burden has shifted onto the network, the hosts, and the booking staff as if they are merely being careful. But careful about what? About offending the FCC chair, who has already bragged publicly about media outlets being reshaped under Trump. That is not ordinary regulatory administration. It is a chilling effect with a name and a chain of command. If the story gets flattened into The View changed its programming, the real actor disappears. The decision was not made in a vacuum. It was enabled by a federal official using the threat of enforcement to narrow what a major broadcaster thinks it can safely air. Who benefits? Carr's public posture makes the intent easy to read. He has reportedly threatened broadcaster licenses over criticism of Trump and boasted at CPAC about media changes under the administration, including PBS and NPR defunding, Colbert's departure, and CBS under new ownership. That is not subtle. It is a celebration of leverage. The beneficiaries are obvious: the administration, its allies, and the broader project of disciplining media into compliance. When regulators behave this way, the point is not just punishment. The point is to teach every other newsroom, producer, and executive what happens when political speech drifts outside acceptable lines. ABC's caution may look prudent inside the corporate boardroom. Politically, it is a concession, and concessions made to coercion do not stay confined to one show. What this reveals: this is a standard authoritarian pattern in a milder American form, not a dramatic shutdown, but a managed narrowing of permissible speech through pressure, ambiguity, and fear. The state does not always need to seize the microphone. It can simply make the microphone expensive to use. It can turn regulation into a threat environment and let media companies internalize the censorship themselves. That is why these episodes matter even when no one is hauled away and no formal ban is announced. The deeper failure is institutional cowardice dressed up as caution. A broadcaster with national reach altered its behavior because one political appointee made clear that defiance might carry costs. That is how soft repression works. That recruits the target's own risk management into the suppression project. The pattern. The lesson is not that one talk show got skittish. The lesson is that a hostile state can discipline large parts of the media landscape without passing a single explicit censorship law. That is the system in miniature. Power threatens, institutions flinch, public debate gets thinner, and then everyone is told this was just a routine editorial decision. It was an example of how authoritarian politics spreads through bureaucracy, licensing, and fear long before it ever needs a formal crackdown. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Roar Story for today's article. With the automated voice of Norman, thanks for listening.